Your attention, please. Paul and Alex are required to proceed to the gate immediately.
What?
No way.
What is happening here?
This is the last call for the Layovers podcast.
Really?
Come on, man. This is our thing. We got this.
Oh, yeah.
And we made it.
Of course, geeks.
Flight 73 to Maldives.
Woo, exotic. We deserve something exotic after the miles that we've stacked up, which explains why it's been so long, hey?
Well, very, very long. Sorry, guys. I mean, we thought that it would be 3 to 4 weeks until the time we would be able to record, and it lasted at least 2 months now.
Has it been 2 months?
I think it was the 18th of May, and we're recording today, July 3rd. No, so a month and 6 weeks.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, guys. I mean, we've been traveling, obviously, right? We've covered, I think, between the two of us, at least 100,000 miles.
For sure.
It's insane. The thing is, we were time to time in London, but the other wasn't. Mm-hmm. And although I brought my microphone, for instance, when I was in Asia, then the time zones didn't work. And for instance, one time you were in Zagreb and I was in Tokyo, and it was like always impossible to find a right time to do so.
Yeah.
So it's the first time we are both in London, and we decided to record, although, and I will admit that so that you guys know, my notes are in total disaster. I have 2 months worth of notes, didn't have time to sort them out. So we just said, let's get an episode out of memory. So we're going to be Paul and Alex talk about their travels.
Yeah. Right? So apologies in advance.
And we missed so many things. The royal wedding, GDPR introduced, weather in a plane. Do you hear Laurel or Yanni? And obviously the World Cup.
And the World Cup. I'd forgotten how wonderful the World Cup is, and I've been able to enjoy it so much more because America isn't in it. So I'm not stressed out. I'm not dreading it or ruining it, or I'm just enjoying it. And it's been such a great World Cup.
Oh yeah, it's an extraordinary one. Honestly, there's I believe like probably 4 games out of all the games played so far probably are in the top 10 of any World Cup.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's been some amazing goals and goalkeeping and controversy, and just as a quasi-neutral supporter, it's been a great World Cup so far.
So you're not supporting England at all?
I am. Of course, I want England to do well. I mean, if the US was in it, of course, I'd be cheering loudly for them. But I'm also a massive supporter of the underdog.
Yeah, me too. That's always been my case, which is why I love this World Cup, because seeing a lot of the big ones.
The big dogs are going out. Some of them didn't even qualify. And so, yeah, it's been great. And I stood in the square in Zagreb and watched Croatia play Iceland, which was wonderful. So now I'm basically an honorary Croatian. So
I did watch myself one Japan game in Tokyo, actually, with Shin, Shin, and a few other guys. That was super cool. And the other ones, and I'll mention that a bit later in the show to talk about aviation, I watched actually 3 games in flight.
That's so cool. What a world we live in.
Exactly. And one of them was actually Japan playing in ANA when I was flying from Bangkok back to Tokyo, and it was Japan playing, and the whole crew loved me because I was keeping them up with the score and I was shouting in the cabin while everybody else was sleeping because it was an 11:50 p.m. flight or something.
Oh, that's so funny.
But I mean, the company that does it is called Sports24 Live. I think that's even their Twitter handle, @Sports24Live. And they have the rights for all the World Cup games, and it's pretty cool. The only thing that is actually interesting, since we're on it, is the commentary. The commentary, because it's an international type of broadcast, it's very neutral, obviously, because sometimes when you listen to even the BBC, when they're not talking about England or ITV or let's say TF1, which is the channel in France, they will have like a favorite, although because they're more they can allow themselves to do that, but in flight, no. So the commentary is very precise. They have a lot of knowledge, but they're very neutral,
That's
which pisses me off.
And where are they from?
I mean, the accent
nondescript
looks like British, and one guy probably Australian.
I didn't even think about where the commentary would come from. That's cool. How hard must it be to be a neutral, though?
And it's amazing, man, how the quality, because there was almost no delay. There's probably a little time delay, but you don't care because you're in flight, so you're not actually really caring if there's like a few seconds off, which is not the case when you watch on live stream, because the other day, I think you were texting me a goal like 5 seconds before I actually saw the goal myself. I was like, what?
Yeah, yeah. It's some of the delay is pretty extraordinary, but it's that you can watch it while you're flying over,
exactly.
wherever it may have been is just extraordinary, inconceivable even 4 years ago.
Exactly. Even I remember that Emirates was trying to display the game they were one of the sponsors, and the games were okay, but like they were dropping off. Sometimes their feed wasn't available over some countries. Now it's been throughout. The other flight I did watch game with Lufthansa. I flew from Frankfurt. Man, Frankfurt. I think I'll dedicate an entire episode of how much I hate Frankfurt.
I couldn't get over some of the stories you were telling.
to Haneda and back, and on both sides again the World Cup was on. The only thing is that the World Cup only starts playing when you actually are in the air. I mean, all the live TV channels, there are 3 on both of these flights because they're the same provider. So it was very frustrating because that Japan game started whilst we were still on the ground taxiing, and it was like, come on, let's take off. So I could see it. But yeah, so it's really cool. The other thing we missed, and let's go just a few seconds on it because I think we cannot not talk about it, is the death of Anthony Bourdain. Although not exactly related to aviation, he's obviously related to food. You had an episode on Investigation Nation lately, I think it was to last episode about him. It was a very good episode, right?
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, here we talk a little bit about airplane food, but I think it's more the philosophy of Bourdain that we miss. I don't have heroes myself because I was not brought up like that, especially by my mother. Like, he'd be very fiercely independent, etc. And if I have any type of heroes, it would be my parents because they brought me up like that. But you know what? What I'm missing about him is this sense of showing discomfort. And I think both of us are really... we like discomfort. Of course, you guys hear us and we talk about, sometimes being in first class and, business class. It's not discomfort at all. But the fact to put yourself in different positions, to try new stuff, to constantly try different type of things, not only food, but also destinations, meeting new people randomly. That's what I've always tried to do when I travel, and I always try to do in life, which is why my career doesn't make any sense, by the way. And I think that's, that hit me in a way that I wasn't expecting, because I was never... I was a fan, like a lot of people, probably not like you were, but it's really, someone who took stances, someone who was non-PC, someone who was accepting others and trying to get to the other all the time, accepting that not everything is black and white. Not everything is black and white. I'll give you an example. My family... my grandfather was one of the head of the resistance in Greece, and they had to host, because at the same time he was a doctor, so he was a very well-known doctor in his region in Greece back in the 40s. He had to host a Nazi SS officer at home. That same Nazi SS officer with my father was trying to run away with his family, including my father, to go to Athens to hide, is the person who saved them. Not everything is black and white. Yeah. And that's a bit what Bourdain kind of showed. Like, you have to try, you have to keep going. It's always complicated. And you know what? That kind of hit me. I know it hits you, of course. I mean, that shows not only in your tweets that you've made, but also in the episode that you've recorded with your brother. But it's, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a bit sad that we're missing someone like that shows, especially people are too comfortable, especially, and I'm sorry because not PC we're going to say, but especially sometimes Americans, that, hey, go out, try stuff, try food. I always tell my friends when they tell me, Paul, what's the best restaurant I should go? It's my first time in Tokyo, for instance, and Tokyo is comfortable. I tell them, you know what, go to any place randomly, choose stuff you don't understand. There's no pictures, just go for it and you'll be fine, right? That's the spirit that I'm going to miss.
Yeah, I agree. I was heartbroken by his passing, and I think it's trite to say it, but there's definitely a very big hole. There's no one with that voice anymore that's challenging and saying, hang on, wait a minute. Not just through the content, but just there generally commentating on some of the choices that we make, and someone challenging us to do exactly what you say, to step away from the day-to-day, and almost in a way single-handedly redefining what travel should be, or at least pointing the ship back in the direction that it needs to be, and no longer, Disney cruises and, manicures and all that nonsense, which is fine. Actually, it's not fine, but it's that voice that was pulling us away from things that were too easy and reminding us that there's a very big world that needs to be explored. And I'm very sad. I remain very sad. And as I said on the other podcast on Mastication Nation, the only good thing that has come from this is this resurfacing of some of his content, especially his written work, his articles, essays, and interviews, and also some of the pieces that people have written about their interactions with him, which perhaps seemed inconsequential at the time, but now, with greater reflection and context, are very powerful and moving. David Simon, who created The Wire, posted a beautiful, almost eulogy on his own personal blog that's well worth seeking out. But yeah, it was a potent reminder for all of us, the importance of travel.
Yeah. And again, I'm going to say another thing that might be, it doesn't make us better, but probably because we're born across different cultures, that we're not a single culture and that we've lived in different places. You are, simply by context, you are more open to that. You understand that more. I have 3 passports and lived God knows how many countries. You have 2 passport leaves. It doesn't make us better people, but it makes us probably more acute to that, because by definition you don't always feel in place when you're somewhere. And that's why these a message like Bourdain talked obviously to us, but I was happy that he talked to people that are also single culture. And here I'm really not saying that some people are better than others. I'm saying try, guys, be uncomfortable. I was with Frankie, Frankie.
Yeah, good old Frankie.
I was with Frankie in Tokyo when I was recently. He's a cancer survivor, and he was always very positive outlook at life. But even more so now, he says, guys, please say yes. And that's always been my philosophy. Please say yes, show up, say yes, try stuff. And of course he's seen death in front. And now he says, I'm talking here, Frankie, he says, just try stuff. And that's exactly a bit like what I'm taking from Bourdain also, although I already have it in me. Is like, say yes and try stuff completely, and find your truth, challenge them, find your horizon, see what's beyond.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, find your lies as well and overcome them. And that's what Bourdain for me was, a bit like a wayfarer, to take a bit of the skyfaring book of Mark, a bit of a cardinal point, like try to be a little bit more
absolutely
like him.
Yeah. And I think that the people that you meet, even if you have nothing in common with them or even disagree fundamentally on just about everything, that doesn't mean you can't like them and enjoy a beer with them and some food. And I think that that's something that I am still working on, but I still think back, God, if he hadn't said that out loud and then embodied it in his actions and his content, I probably still would be, thinking I'm a little bit of I am a little bit of an asshole, but at least I'm conscious of it now when I travel.
And in Greek, we say when someone dies, we say that he or she lives through us. So Alex, it lives through you, lives through people like me, lives through people like you guys are listening and are trying and traveling. So keep the flame alive. And, thank you for listening to this little introduction that was not the most positive, but I think really, guys, say yes, show up and find discomfort.
Absolutely.
Anyway, moving on back to aviation. So many. I don't even know where to start. Maybe do you want to start with one of your travels? I mean, you've been to so many places. You've been to Zagreb, Budapest. You've been to Monterrey. You've been to Moscow. You've been to Hong Kong. You've been to
Malta.
We're not going to cover everything in this episode. We're going to cover over the 2 or 3 next episodes because, first of all, we have a short period of time actually to record today, but also because otherwise it would be just Paul and Alex just randomly talking about travel. So which one do you want to pick? Is there any experience you want to mention?
Yeah, I think probably because it was such a revelation. I found one of the crazy American Airlines BA fares that allows you to fly in BA on first for a reasonable fare. Just the way that American prices BA 747 first class seats means it's not as horrendous as it usually is. But it also meant, and I think I was going to Monterey, so there was a fairly hefty itinerary of toings and froings. But it meant I did most of the legs on American, just because they fly to Monterey. I flew London to Miami in business class on American Airlines. What a fantastic experience that was.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
I never thought I would say that about any American airline ever, international legacy carrier. Wow. It was fantastic. It was so good. It was
the hard and the soft product?
Yep.
I mean, like the entire experience?
The entire experience. So it was a 777 300. No, pardon me. It was a 200 actually, from London to Miami. The seat was the Zodiac that we're all familiar with, the angled. I think it doesn't really matter, but it was incredibly comfortable. It was spacious. The IFE was outstanding. Big screen, reasonably good content. The 3 live TV channels that you were mentioning, the sports, I think BBC and CNN, blazing fast Wi-Fi for the entire flight. The food was outstanding, just exemplary, really fresh, hot, lots of good choices, lots of good American comfort food, really good wine list. And in the galley area, when BA put out a couple of, packs of crisps and some, Kit Kats, they had all these beautiful, savory and sweet tapas, tapas in the loosest sense of the word, little small dishes. And they were all absolutely delicious. The crew were friendly, assertive, of a standard of Cathay.
Wow.
In their
Wow.
I know. It's extraordinary. In their attentiveness, in their humor, in their, I noticed you didn't eat, so I brought you this. If you wanted, why don't you try both of these instead of having to pick, that type of thing. I was just so impressed. And then I'm going to try and zip through this because I know we have a lot to cover, but
No, go ahead.
the way that the ticket worked, because of the Saturday night stay rule, meant that by the time I got to Monterey, which was on an E190, again, comfortable, friendly service, blazing fast Wi-Fi, the whole nine yards. No IFE or anything like that, but decent snacks. I got to Monterey on a Wednesday night. Is that right? Yeah. I did my speech on a Thursday, but I couldn't fly back until Sunday.
Oh.
I was a little frustrated by that. I mean, as much as I would love to be in Monterey, and it's a great city, but I wanted to get back to my family because I've got a young daughter and two kids. When I got to Miami and I went to the incredible lounge that the American have there, again, huge. I think an American Travelers, correct me if I'm wrong, it feels like it was renovated recently. And I think I might have mentioned to you even that it was renovated recently. Huge, spacious. The food was outstanding. Hot and cold was, again, blew BA out of the water. And I'm not trying to rag on BA. I'm just using them as a point of reference because I traveled with them the most. But I went up to the customer. They have 4 dedicated customer service desks and said, explain the problem. And the guy looked at the ticket. He's like, well, there's probably going to be a change fee at least. Oh, wait a minute. No, you're at One World Emerald, so we may be able to scratch that. But the Saturday night sale, well, there's going to be a fair difference. And I was like, I know it's going to be huge. So he gets on the phone to the ticketing center and he's like, okay, well, there's no change fee. That's good. And they're getting on the phone. And all of a sudden, maybe 15 people, American Airlines staff, uniformed and non-uniform, coming around the corner with a cake with candles on it. They're all covered in like signs and the guy on the phone, it was his last day.
Oh,
and they
wow.
basically shut the operation down. I guess he was a little bit of a superstar. Shut the whole thing down. And so sang him songs and everything while he's on the phone. He's like, I'm trying to help a customer here, guys. The operations manager for all of Miami for American gets on the phone and takes over the call for him so he can do this thing. And they're like, okay, no charge, no problem. Go home and see your family. Come back tomorrow night and we'll get you on the flight. You're confirmed on this flight.
Amazing.
No charges, no nothing. Don't worry about it.
That's how it should be, man.
Yeah. And then so this guy's getting all the people are singing to them and they're all trying to take pictures with him. And they're like, oh, I want to be in the picture. And I was like, screw it, I'll take the picture for you. So I took a picture with all these and they were just so friendly. And I think that was so great. And I told them, I had really low expectations for you. I, by definition, hate you because I was with Virgin America and they're like, oh, we missed having them around. But my flight back through Dallas, which we'll talk about later, because Jesus Christ, was not as good as the way over, but it was still great. It was an 8-month-old 777-300, great food, great service. I need to kind of cap in hand, eat some humble pie and say, American Airlines, you have got me as a customer.
Wow. I was about to fly them, actually. You remember, I was amongst all those crazy travels we've done. There's one I've done that required me to go to New York for exactly 13 hours, which is completely stupid. But I had really literally no choice. Suddenly this client comes to me and says, Paul, we need you there. And then like in the middle of the travel, says, I can probably try to make that happen. So I had to fly from Athens to New York, back to Athens, then to London, like in a day and a half. It was completely stupid. And I was looking at all the options and I needed to fly after noon in Athens. And a lot of the flights, if you guys live in Europe, but if you don't, you'll learn a lot of the flights going to the US, they fly in the morning up to noon. It's very rare to find flights in the afternoon, right?
Yep.
So for me, it was a big, there was one flight I could have done. It was actually flying from Athens to Rome Fiumicino and then AA from Rome to JFK, and that would have been, I think, like just 12:30 or something. That was just perfect. And I didn't because of what you just said, the Sunday rule. Because again, in 13 hours, there's no Sunday there. It was a Monday actually, and it would have cost me like an arm and a leg. But I was really wanting to try AA, so that gives me like a little kick in the butt to try it next time when I see that a fare that works, I will actually do it.
Yeah, I was impressed, and again, like we've talked about this a few times, it's that if you're willing to play around with ITA Matrix, which actually we should spend some time talking about in the next few episodes because that product has changed dramatically.
Sadly,
yeah, not in a good way. You can find these crazy fares. Relatively crazy fares that will allow you to do business class or first if you can play with the fare buckets a little bit. And I was just so impressed. I was so impressed. And I've got no shame admitting I was very wrong about that.
You shouldn't have any shame. I think, a lot of people always, comment. I'm not talking us. I'm reading comments, and there's always a battle who's the best in the US, and that comes in bracket because obviously compared to some of the other airlines in the world, it's not really always very high. But it's either Delta or AA. It's never United. Sorry, guys. It's I used to fly Delta, and I was always pretty, happy is maybe overstatement, but I was content with them. But AA, I haven't flown them in at least 15 years, so I really need to try them.
I hadn't either. So yeah, I was impressed. They did well.
That reminds me of another story that happened to you. Sorry, guys, as you can see, we're not going to go chronologically at all. You were trying, were you not on a BA flight? You were trying to get on an earlier flight, and it was impossible.
Yeah, I can't remember if I told the story already, but it was in Dublin, and I rocked up very early because I'd finished my commitments in the city early, and they said it was going to cost, and this is just to go from Dublin back to London, that it would cost £170 just to get on the another flight, in which there was space because I'd looked on Expert Flyer and I'd actually called the BA reservations agents as well, and they wouldn't do it.
Maybe you're right. Maybe now I forget, guys. Sorry if we talked about in the last episode, but for us, the last episode is like 8 weeks or 6 weeks ago.
Oh, well, that was when they my seat was deallocated.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I think you mentioned because I've had that story as well during these weeks, and I just showed up to the counter and it was done. It was Lufthansa, and it happened to me already with Swiss in the past. I just show up and say, "Hey, I'm early. Can I take another flight?" Of course, but like you are, you're gold on BA. Yeah, so I was gold on Senator on Lufthansa, and I said, "Can I take this one so I get faster to my destination?" "No problem, sir. Here are the seats available," and that was it. It should be like that, or tell me, it's going to be like $50. Okay, but at least there's impossibility drives me insane. Like, come on, wow, how? And the other question I have for you, since you said E190, I also flew E190 from BA. It's not BA, it's a City Flyer,
City something like that. Yeah,
City Jet, or City Line. Yeah. Anyway, they fly from Lucy, London City in. Did you have, because you were in business class, it was a 2-2, I think. Did you have a free seat next to you? How was that working?
On American, it's 1-2.
1-2. Okay, yeah, 1-2, absolutely. And did you have a free seat next to you?
I was in the one.
You were in the one.
Yeah.
Because I flew the E190 with LOT, for instance, the Polish Airlines, and in business class, you would have a free seat next to you if you're in the 2 row. And I was flying, again, BA, so City Flyer, City Line, whatever the name is, to Ibiza. I was just in Ibiza for work, guys, for work, I promise you.
He hastens to add.
And for a speech, actually. And the seat next to me was also taken. Turns out it was taken by someone who was going to the same conference. It was pretty cool.
That's funny.
But meaning that I was wondering if it's because it was City Line, whatever, that they have a different rule and can allow themselves to just fill the plane without having to allocate a free seat. And again, it wasn't fine. I'm here. I'm not complaining. I found it interesting that some airlines will give you that free seat no matter which aircraft you're flying, and some others won't.
Yeah, it's fun. I think the major difference on even on the short haul in America is that you get a proper quote unquote first class seat.
That for sure.
So, this was a significantly and substantially bigger seat in quote unquote first than it was in economy. So you only had room for one physical seat on one side and two on the other in the 175s, 170s, and 190s. Whereas with BA, it's still two. And then they just move as they do on the 320s and 319s, they just move the divider up and.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's true that in Europe,
we kind of get screwed over here, don't we?
Flying, any business class product, which is often the equivalent to what you call first class in the US, has no real, advantage because, okay, you have a little bit more food and you might have that free seat if you're in like a 320, there's 3 for instance. But the seat is the same. So unless you're like row 1, which I always take for my leg room, but then again, I can take emergency exit and that will be more often than not in economy and I will have the same leg room and I'll be fine.
More. Yeah, that's what I've started doing on the recent trips I've done with BA is because they released the exit seats to gold card holders earlier. Yeah. I just grab an exit row. I'm not going to get the terrible food. And the only other consideration I have is tier points and miles, but I'm easily going to hit gold again this year, so I don't even think about it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm starting to do the same in Europe. But talking about that, so I was flying, as I said, from Athens to New York. That's one of the trips I've done. And so I couldn't find, it was really complicated to find something that worked. So I ended up doing, and sorry, American friends, because it was almost a middle finger to US Airlines, because I flew on the way there with Qatar Airways and the way back with Emirates. Right?
Wait, so what was your routing again to be able to do it?
Yeah, it's the routing, especially on the way there, is a bit stupid because from Athens I had to fly to Doha and then Doha JFK, and then on the way back is Newark to Athens because it's one of the fifth freedom routes they have, and then from Athens flew to London. It was completely stupid, but I mean fun at the same time because come on, we like traveling. It was a good challenge to find that specific deal.
That's cool.
So it allowed me to fly from Athens, leaving at 8 p.m. The flight was delayed, and I'll come to that in a minute, to Doha, which flight was at 1 a.m. and I landed at 8:40 a.m. A bit earlier, actually, 8:20 a.m. The flight was early in JFK. So that's perfect because I landed and I went to my board meeting and my client at 10 a.m. So that was actually absolutely freaking perfect because it was almost I was commuting to New York.
Yeah. Wow.
And then I took the flight back with Emirates. So to be the fare, I couldn't find a fare that was really well done. So the fare with Emirates on the way back, I used miles to pay for it because it was otherwise way too expensive. But interestingly, Athens to JFK non-return was actually it was in business class, was actually very good. And talking about the seat, the Athens Doha leg was done with a 320. And to your point, it was a larger seat. Of course, not lie flat or anything, but it was a larger seat. It was more comfortable. And you like, when you compare that to like any, and it's here's not a dig at BA, any of the airlines in Europe, and I flew Lufthansa and I flew Swiss and I flew which other? I flew to 3 other airlines. I don't remember them now. Always the seat is like the same that in the back. So there's really no reason. In that case, it was actually nice to have that 320 with a larger seat. It was still on the 4-hour flight. It's not a short flight.
No.
Right? By the way, and I'll come back to my story. What did you have to go to Moscow? Because that's also like a 3-4 hours flight, right?
So I did actually went via Amsterdam. I did London City, Amsterdam, SVO on whatever KLM CityJet, and then regular KLM service. But on the way back, I did. Thank you for reminding me. This is the day, and I feel like you had one of these as well, where I woke up in Moscow, had breakfast in London, cocktails in Miami, and dinner in Monterrey, Mexico, and then my brain exploded. But I did, the mid-haul BA 321 in business, which is a Club World product. So you get I had the throne seat with the big IFE, you get the full meal service, you get Club World, so international business class, tier points and mileage accrual. I was too tired to even enjoy it. To really enjoy it. It's only like 3.5 hours anyway, having a great IFE selection and I mean, you've done that as well.
Yep.
And it's what it should be. Right. I'm not going to want it to go to Amsterdam in 42 minutes, But for 3 hours, it was.
But it's interesting that the IFE was working, because remember when I was telling the stories of taking the 321, the BMI, the ex-BMI one, so these were lie flats. I was flying from Beirut to London, and the IFE was off. It was just the BA, not even the moving map, which interestingly, again, we will invite at some point. Always say we'll invite at some point someone who talks about the IFE rights, because it was very awkward not to being able to watch anything on the IFE. I also had it to Rome, I think, once from BA, which is also surprising. It's only 2 hours, maybe just an aircraft change or something.
Yeah, I think there's some very specific routes where they apply them, but then I think when push comes to shove, they reallocate them because they're reasonably high density and economy.
Yeah, exactly. So back to so I'm in Athens. So Athens airport has improved quite extensively. I think I've already mentioned that, because I must have been to Athens 25 million times since the beginning of the year, so I don't gonna dwell on this one. But it's really security. Everything now is a bit like Gatwick, with e-gates. You put your passport for the boarding pass, it opens. It's just fast, right? They even now put, for if you go extra Schengen, which was my case here, they even put now e-gates at that security point.
What a joy.
They're not always open yet. Clearly it's a trial, something. There's only 4, but I mean, they're fast. I mean, again, the fastest ones are probably the ones in Munich, but they're super fast. So if you have a biometric passport, it's actually really fantastic. And more airports should be doing this, because it really helps, and not copycat the machines we have in the UK, because they're still very slow. So I'm at a counter. And I had the seats, when I was booking my Qatar flight, I was like, which seats do I have? And the 320 had 2F, and then the 350, flying like 13 hours and 14 hours on the 350. What a magnificent story it is.
Oh, yeah.
I had a 7A, and I go to the check-in because I had a luggage, because and I'm probably going to do that in the next episode, because it's very interesting. I was traveling with podcast equipment. So I had 2 microphones, boom arms, and everything with me. And I did... During that flight, I was in Sofia, I was in Athens, I was in Doha, I was in New York, I was again in Athens, I was in London, and I was in another city. And I had this with me, and it was a very good experiment about how security would react, because it's kind of, what is this, right?
Yeah.
And some securities were, anyway. So I'm at just needed the boarding pass, because Qatar wasn't allowing mobile boarding passes in Athens. And I come there, and the girl says, you're in 2F. Do you want 1F? I'm like, oh, yeah. And then the other one was 7A. She says, do you want 1A? And it was like, marry me? It was like, she understood that I liked the front row in both flights. Anyway, and so the route was very interesting. But you know what? The route was, again, one of these bizarre routes because of the blockade. It was a 4.5 hour flight or something, because we had to reroute, and we couldn't go straight because, again, Saudi Arabia is blocking Qatar Airways. It's very strange. You look at a moving map and you go all the way north of Greece, over Turkey, and you basically surpass everything, and then you follow the Arabian Sea, and you end up in Qatar. So that's, I mean, if you don't know about it, you don't really kind of feel it, because, you're being said your flight is 4 hours, and most of the people won't even care. But I was watching a movie, Mac, I'm like, oh, this is clearly not the fastest route. And then, I realized that, obviously Qatar Airways still has to deal with that shit. So, yeah, well, there you go. So the ultra interesting bit that we can't always hint at in many episodes, the entire business class cabin, besides me, were Chinese. All Chinese.
On Athens to Doha.
Exactly. They were all then connecting to China, because there was this woman next to me. She wasn't speaking, and most of the guys in the cabin weren't speaking a single word of English, only Chinese. China, there's 2 reasons. There's now... like in other European countries, there's a fast track to residency. So you have a Schengen visa if you buy a flat in Athens. So I have a flat in Athens myself, and the 2 streets next to me are basically Chinatown now. 3 years ago, they were not. Because I think if you buy 250,000 euros a flat, you get permanent residency in Greece. It's not citizenship, but then you have Schengen visa, which is a pain to do. For those of you who don't live in Europe, and you have to deal with the 2 billion pages of the Schengen visa, it's amazing, right? So and then I realized how even Qatar, the guys, the crew was superb, young, very good, very willing, engaging. I love them. but how unprepared we are with that wave of Chinese tourism.
Yeah.
Because none of them were speaking any Chinese. The communication was really hard. She was trying to speak to me. She was very nice. And I was like trying to babble something by 5 words in Chinese, in Mandarin. It's striking. It's striking because it's coming. We know that someday China will completely unrestrict the travel restrictions for Chinese, and that will create like a whole new havoc for airlines to deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really interesting that they were
entire. But I remember she was asking me because I think she was a bit kind of not lost, but unsure. She was, are you transferring to, I think they were going to Shanghai. I don't remember now. And she was probably meaning, can I walk with you at Doha airport to go to the, and I said, no, sorry, I'm going to New York. And that was it. So probably, again, there's no Chinese language on the signs in Doha yet. They will probably do it.
Exactly.
Yet, because in Cyprus airport, Larnaca, very small, obviously, there is already in Chinese. Even the PA announcements are in Chinese now.
Wow.
So very good flight, very nice flight. The IFE is pretty good, everything. I mean, you guys know that. The thing is the flight was late. And I only had 55 minutes to connect to my New York flight. And I was getting a bit antsy. I'm like, my God, because if I miss that New York connection, then of course I miss my meeting. That was my whole point, actually going to New York. To go to that meeting.
Oh God, I hate that. It's stressful.
But it worked. So we arrive. We have a gate. With no bus, because sometimes in Doha with non-premium, I mean, it's a huge airport. Usually you have a bridge, but sometimes you have a bus. No, we had a bridge. And there was someone waiting for me, actually. So that was another thing that was pretty cool.
Wow.
Someone waited for me and simply walked. That's the thing. It wasn't really useful, but they didn't know whether, it's an Alex Hunter that knows his way around, or if it's like some random person that's never flown to Doha. Simply walked with me through. They have an internal security, which is pretty efficient, and walked to that other gate. I was the last passenger to arrive at that gate. And you know what? Finally, I'm not sure it's a good thing, but I finally experienced the extreme vetting rules for flights that go to the US.
Yeah.
My God, they literally swiped every single stuff within my suitcase. When my suitcase, my carry-on was completely emptied, I had to go twice, one to X-ray and one through one of these, machines, whatever.
Scatter.
Backscatter. So it took me 25 minutes. Well, maybe not, I'm exaggerating. 20 minutes to clear that security bit. And I was looking, I mean, I knew that at that point I would make my flight because I was there. But
they know you're there.
Yeah, but I understood why the guy who was waiting for me was walking super fast. I thought, oh, maybe I'm going to miss my flight because my flight is about to close the door. No, it's because of extreme vetting procedures that are happening. So, So be aware, guys, if you fly to the US. I mean, we mentioned that. We know that it exists, but it's not upsetting. Very polite, very cool guys. Plus, I'm always polite as well. So I'm, engaging and I make them smile and whatever. But really, really tough. So, and then the flight, 13 hours in a 350. 350 is great aircraft.
It really is.
And the product in Qatar for that is one of the best in the world. Was really fantastic. So honestly, nothing else I will add about that. Is really absolutely fantastic. The one thing that I saw, and I told you that I heard in both these flights, is that instead of saying boarding completed when everybody is on board, they say all customers on board.
So small but so powerful.
Yeah, exactly. I felt that as well. And of course, going to the US, same thing with the moving map. I saw we were going up that one of the two paths they are allowed to use to escape Qatar. Yeah. Anyway, that's why they're still they are planning to lease other aircrafts to even BA to replace the Dreamliners that still have issues with Rolls-Royce or something.
I think just general capacity issues that are being addressed.
Yeah. By the way, IAG is still bidding on Norwegian, since we're talking about 787s.
Yeah, and I think Norwegian have told them to do one 3 times now.
I think the last bid was 1.5 billion. I don't have it in front of me, guys, because I guess my notes are a disaster. But yeah, they're still interested.
Yeah, and Lufthansa are as well.
Yeah. Oh, Lufthansa. I'm going to talk about Lufthansa next time because of Frankfurt, because I had great experiences with Lufthansa because I flew first class for the first time in my life with Lufthansa. But flying Norwegian these days, I mean, I've seen on the ground in JFK, because JFK is, of course, one of the destinations from Norwegian, but also at Gatwick, when I was flying to Barcelona, Gatwick being one of the destination points for Norwegian.
Yes.
Basically, nowadays, you want to fly Norwegian and you end up flying Titan or some strange airline because they have these problem with their Rolls-Royce engines on 787.
Yeah, I think that there's a few issues, and I think the engines are one of them, but also I just think that there's selling before they have the capacity to sell in some regards. A friend of mine who I bumped into recently, actually at Gatwick, was about to fly on them to New York and ended up being on Waymosh Air on a 747, and he said, I'm reading this tweet, flying back from New York to the UK on effing, he didn't say effing, Waymosh, worst airline ever. Thanks, Norwegian, you suck. If I wanted to fly in a 1980s shed, I would have booked one. And he said, there's a great, he said that none of the crew spoke English.
Oh my God.
And posted I'll post a link, or we can retweet it on the Layovers Twitter account, this review that he found that mirrored his experience, and it would be hilarious if it wasn't so tragic.
I saw an airline I had never seen also on the ground for Norwegian. It was the name of the airline is Privilege Style. And it's one of these
style. It sounds like a discount clothing brand.
Exactly. And I mean, the look at on airliners.net, it also looks like a discounted airline, like the delivery is from the 1960s probably. And what I'm hearing as well on reviews in that the seats are also from the 1960s, which, by the way, there's only one redeeming quality in flying that specific. It was a 777-200 ER. Apparently, the one specific thing that is better on that is that when you book premium economy on Norwegian, you have a premium economy. Apparently, Privilege Style has older but still proper first class seats, so you would have a lot of leg room. It's old seats, so you're not lie flat or whatever, but I mean, you're not lie flat or premium economy on Norwegian anyway. Right. But you have at least, but the rest apparently disaster. There was food that was missing. I mean, apparently, so I'm not here making a dig at Norwegian. It's just that they really are in the process of having all their aircraft being checked, and that creates a big problem. And I understand that if you're a customer, because the website of Norwegian is so well done, showing why you will fly and how the seat moves, and then you arrive and you have that, you're like, what?
I'd be pissed. What? Yeah, I think it's much more likely if you're flying New York, just a high density route, than some of the other places that Norwegian fly to, but it's still, I think, at this point, inexcusable.
Yeah. Rolls-Royce has put out a press release finally, because they're feeling the heat, because it's really when I was in Haneda twice, I saw Dreamliners without the engines on the ground.
Yeah, there's a bunch of ANA ones at Haneda.
Exactly. Yeah.
At Heathrow, there's loads of Virgin Atlantic ones.
Yeah. It's really a big story, honestly.
How can this not be bankrupting Rolls-Royce? That's what I don't understand.
Again, because I don't know. Yeah, exactly. I don't know how the whole structure works, because if a Rolls-Royce, and we don't know, these are only assumptions and hypotheses, but if Rolls-Royce is able to say that a specific piece is the responsible, they're going to lay the blame on whoever provider, because it's one of the things where parts are coming from all around the world, assembled, et cetera, et cetera. So they put out an update, a press release, finally addressing the situation and saying that they are undertaking everything they can, and they apparently found a solution for the Trent 1000, which is the engine that has issues. So, yeah, let's see where that heals, but the problem is still there. So, guys, if you fly any of the airlines that promise you a Dreamliner, you might not fly a Dreamliner.
You might not be,
Although I did, Haneda, Bangkok, and back, I was both times in 789, so Dreamliner -9. I don't know if those had already been repaired or they were about to, which you never know. I mean, I was not scared of it ever, because it's not as if, guys, it's not as if the engine will explode mid-air, right? It's not, but it's still concerning enough. Yeah, you do. Yeah. Yeah. You do. I mean, it's ANA, so you kind of feel that, oh, well, it's such a good airline, it shouldn't happen. But then again, how do you know?
Well, exactly.
How do you know? Well, let's talk briefly about that, because it's interesting that if you ever fly ANA, and I know that you will fly again ANA at some point, Alex, because Japan is in your heart now. By the way, we're both reeling of the defeat of Japan yesterday against Belgium.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, but what a game!
What a game! Yeah, wonderful game, and a a game football can be proud of, which it certainly could not have been in the previous game that yesterday.
Yeah, oh my God, Brazil. That's Neymar. He's a Rolls-Royce engine by himself. He just rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls. Anyway, sorry, Brazilian friends, we love you, but Neymar, nah, come on, nah, I can't. I mean, this is such a waste, such a talented player, but such a moron when he does that kind of stuff. It's like, I hate him. So if you fly ANA, if you fly on, they call that short, but I mean, come on, Haneda to Bangkok is 6 hours, 5.5.
6 hours, jeez.
And they call it short haul.
Not exactly short haul, is it?
So if you fly the Dreamliner -8, so 787-8, or the Dash 9, there's a big difference, especially, of course, again, I was lucky to be flying in business class. Interestingly, they fly 10 minutes apart from Haneda on both and from Bangkok. So there's 2 flights leaving at 10 minutes difference, and one is a Dash 8 and one is a Dash 9. The thing is, the Dash 8 has 222 non-full lie flat seats, so still, bigger seats, like more leg room, etc., etc. And then the Dash 9 as a product you might have seen and experienced, maybe even the 777, which is a full lie flat seat. So I was like, well, in 10 minutes and for the same price, of course I would go for the Dash 9. Yeah. Why would you go for the other one?
Absolutely. And I wonder how many people know that, though. I mean, you and I, we're the kind of people that obsessively research the product, and we'll make a decision based on that. So the pricing was negligible.
Yeah, the pricing was almost the same. Like we're talking about a price of like 20-30 euros difference. Really nothing. Maybe because I was booking in advance, maybe closer to the day would have been different. But the one thing though, and that's something I always loved about Japanese airlines in general, and you've experienced that, they give you all the freaking information possible. So offer not only on the ground but also on the website. So when you are on ANA and try to book that, that's when I realized that there was like, see the configuration of the plane, you press, you have 7, see the seat, you press, and then you actually see the seats. And I was like seeing both of the seats. It was like, why would I take the Dash 8, right? Yeah. I mean, it's nothing against the Dash 8. Mark, I don't know which one you're going to fly, but...
good question. I think they can go back and forth, can't they?
Yeah, probably is the
same,
right?
That, Mark.
Well, I guess once you validated with Streamliners, probably all of them?
Well, I think so. One would assume.
I don't know. Mark, we need to have you again on the show to tell us how was your training for that, because I think he started officially
flying. He's flying, yeah.
Yeah, I think April was his... kind of testing, and May was co-piloting or something. I don't remember. I thought you must be flying for July. So new destinations, Mark. New book as well. Please.
Yeah, new book, please.
So you flew 777 in business class?
777, yes.
From London, right?
From London.
So the seat is very similar, but not exactly the same. You know that the tray, that actually that tray is a more normal one. It comes from the side. So you can see that they made some adjustments. It's less an exotic seat. The interesting bit, which I really enjoyed, is that you arrived. It's such a short flight because they're both were red eye. So both were like you leave at midnight and arrive at 5 in the morning. In the case of actually going to Bangkok was 4:30. I landed 4:30, which is great to beat traffic, guys. Really, I mean, there's a reason I wanted to arrive, because Bangkok traffic is one of the worst in the world. So you're at 4:30 and you get to the center in like half an hour.
There you go.
But interestingly, because they know that people want to sleep, everything is on your seat when you arrive. Not only the duvet, they have a mattress. I mean, come on, they have a mattress. Wow. I mean, why, there's so many airlines, like a very comfortable one. It's, it's Japanese. It's like Muji. It's not ostentatious, but it's both are very well done. Yeah. The mask, amenity kit is very limited, but there's really one thing that I loved inside. There's a pack, and within that pack, there's one mint.
One mint.
I loved it. Anyway, and so you see that people, as soon as they go in a plane, they want to sleep right away, and they understand that. So even the menu, they had menus, of course, for if you want to eat something. The menu was mostly a breakfast one. So what would you like to eat when we are about to land? And they give you this card, which you have to fill, and it says, okay, do you want a Japanese version, Western version? And then do you want to be woken up or not? Of course. And you give that before takeoff.
Very sensible.
So meaning that because they know that as soon as we take off, and I saw that, not only they dim the lights, but everybody, I saw they were already putting their seat in life flight mode and not going to be disturbed, because you're going to really have like 5 hours of sleep.
At the most.
At the most, exactly. And it was perfect. On the way there, because I was watching the games, I almost didn't sleep. Oh, and I was still jet lagged, so it was fine. Yeah. And I had an early check-in at my hotel, so I could actually check in at 6 a.m., like
Oh, that's
5:30.
perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So I had a little bit of food. I had, Wagyu bun. Oh my, so fantastic. My God, there's a food. I took the Japanese options, of course, every single time. Really, really amazing product. And the crew, man, that's what I see the difference from 2 years ago to today.
Really?
And and as in you can see that they're trained in English more and more.
Yes. I've noticed that in Japan in general, especially in
general,
Tokyo. I think it's definitely a concerted effort as they move towards
the Olympics,
and the
rugby
World
as
Cup.
well.
Yeah.
It was impressive. And there's the crew on the way back. So Bangkok to Haneda was even better because that was that flight I mentioned at the top of the show when I was watching Japan playing. And it was one of the only persons in the cabin awake because, again, everybody else wanted to sleep to probably go to work the next day in Tokyo. Yeah. And I was like pumping my fist every time Japan was marking a goal. They did too. And the crew was like, at first she came to me and she was like eyeing my screen. And I was like, oh, do you want to score? That's the score. And then she was coming every 5 minutes.
Oh, that's nice.
And retopping my drink, but of course wanting to score. So they were really fantastic. I mean, ANA is such a great airline.
They are
such a great airline.
How lucky Japan is to have two great flagship airlines.
Yeah, absolutely. What a fantastic experience both ways. And last bit before back to you. When on the way back, I saw that game and then I went to sleep and I said, do not wake me up. And indeed, they did not wake me up until 20 minutes before we landed. That was really the last possible moment. They waited because some airlines will wake you 40, 45 minutes when the descent starts. That was literally, I woke up and I was like, oh shit, we're landing.
Wow. That's nice though. It's nice that they did that.
Yeah. Because we talked about that, the windows dimmed, non-dimmed.
Locked?
So no, actually, I thought they were. So on the way from Tokyo to Bangkok, they had already dimmed all the windows. And I was like, I don't see the airport. I want to take pictures, although it was like middle of the night. They probably were locked at the beginning, but when we were taxiing, I was able to remove the dim. I mean, it's just slow sometimes, that thing.
Yeah, for it to go... I don't know if have you noticed if it like almost has to sort of warm up?
Yeah.
And then subsequent dimmings and undimmings are faster? Or is that my imagination?
No, you're right. I think so. Because the first time, and that's probably also why I had this assumption they were locked. It was like, this thing is not working. And I was about to call the attendant. But then again, I was like, okay, it's Japan. If the rule is it's locked, they're never going to do an exception for me. No, you're right. Maybe that's it.
I think it must.
Mark, tell us.
Yeah, I mean, I love those, and I think it's interesting. I don't know if if it was the same on Qatar, but certainly on Cathay's A350s, it's a normal up and down. Yeah. That's an interesting choice. I wonder if the new 779 is it the 779
X10
77X whatever it's going to be will have the dimmables, or if it'll have the standards. Whether the 787 isn't going to be an anomaly for that. It's more pain than it's worth.
And I don't know if the 777, the new one, will also have these very large, because the 350 windows, okay, it's Airbus, it's in between, right? It's bigger, but it's not as big as the ones. No. But they're already very agreeable, the one on 350.
The 350, the 350 is wonderful. I'm flying on a 787 on Sunday, so I'm looking forward to pressing my face against the window and enjoying the world.
BA, yep. So let's go. I mean, guys, as you know, because we have to move forward, I'll come back to the trip, especially with a few other things I want to mention about the airport, because, of course, Haneda is amazing. There's a few new things. Next episode, probably. So, BA, you're going to fly BA, but you flew BA.
I did.
That was not that great, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna preempt this by saying this isn't a first world problem. It's just... everything's relative. Everything's context. I appreciate how lucky I am. Blah, 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 blah. So as part of the ticket that I told you guys earlier that I found, one of the legs was in first on BA. And this is interesting to me, and I think it reflects the quality of the product. A seat in first on a BA 747, when you buy it on American Airlines, is maybe 40% cheaper than on a Dreamliner or a 380.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think that's very telling. And I was excited because I love the 747, and that's kind of what made up for it. This otherwise not wonderful experience. it's hard. Like, I think I told you this, that I was doing a little video of my experience for Attaché, because we sometimes do these little asides, and I gave up halfway across the Atlantic because I was just like, there's nothing special about this. I can't get excited about it, and I'll tell you why. The physical seat is tired. It's like it's a normal seat that maybe Cathay had in business a few years ago that reclines. You've got a wardrobe next to you, which really can't hold anything because it's too shallow. I was in 2F or 2, whatever the K must be, because it's the last seat. So you're in the nose and you're in the curve, which is wonderful. And it's lovely to be in a 747. That was not diminished in any way, shape at all. You're right above the nose wheel, and it's loud as hell when that thing comes down, and the roar of the wind. If you don't appreciate aviation, it's probably annoying as hell. But for me, it's a visceral reminder that you are going extremely fast, over the ground. The food was very mediocre. It was one of the worst premium meals I've ever had in my life. It was disgusting.
Way.
Yeah.
Oh.
The service was, how do I say this without sounding like a jerk? Almost too friendly and familiar and chatty and casual, which would have been fine, but this person didn't know anything about the product at all. And I discovered why, which I'll tell you in a minute. But she didn't know the menu at all. She didn't even know what some of the menu items were, like a kind of curry that is on every Indian takeaway in the UK. She didn't know what it was. Didn't know what an Americano was.
What?
I said, I can have an Americano. She's like, oh, is that like a cappuccino? And I was like, no. Because they've got these great little, proper coffee espresso machines in BA and First. Yeah. And just the IFE was horrendous. It was the really old Rockwell Collins IFE. So the
Nintendo, whatever, the portable, the screen the size of that, portable thing we had in the 90s, right?
Really bad. My light kept spazzing out, like it would just flicker on and off.
Wow.
And like I said, I just gave up on no Wi-Fi, of course. And it was just very, very underwhelming. And I looked around and thought, so there's 12 seats. Somebody here paid full price for this, and I don't know how they can be happy with it. I would have been very, very disappointed myself. There was nothing. The wine list compared to Emirates was, pedestrian. Again, please, I'm not a snob. It's relative to the experiences, right? You're comparing a car to a car, a meal to a meal. It's not like, well, you're in first class, stop complaining. That's not what this is about.
Correct.
At the end of the flight, when we landed in Miami, it was the end of the world. The storm, there was a huge storm, absolutely gargantuan storm that shut the airport down. Because when they have thunderstorms, as they rightly should, all ground handling staff, anybody has to be inside. They cannot be on the airfield. It's too dangerous because of lightning strikes.
Yep.
And we sat on the tarmac for about an hour while the airport was closed. And you cannot get mad about that. It's frustrating, but you can't get mad about it.
There's nothing to do. Yeah.
There's no one's in any control about it. They did a really good job of explaining the situation. When we turned after they finally opened up the airport and the plane that was in our gate was able to leave, there must have been, without exaggeration, 50 American Airlines planes in queues.
Wow.
They were queued up on the runways trying to make room for other planes taxiing. And a guy got up as we were taxiing to go to the bathroom and got into a very aggressive verbal altercation with the crew.
Because the crew asked him to sit down?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And they took his name, and it was. I think
the the US has a rule that all passengers may be seated until disembarkation, as in it was a security rule that was done after the shoe bomber or something, whatever, back in the day, that at some point it was like you cannot even read a book, and then they kind of backtrack on that bit, but they say you're not supposed to congregate, you're not supposed to do anything.
Yeah, right? and the guy was
but still, I mean, come on, you go into the bathroom.
He was unnecessarily aggressive, but the response was unnecessarily aggressive as well. So it was pretty awkward. It was pretty awkward
Yeah.
to experience that. And and that was the flight where I flew back with American, I think. I can't remember. But it just wasn't. They need to up their game massively, the product on those airplanes, because they're not gonna upgrade them for ages. And it was just not good at all.
Oh wow.
I'm just now in reflection. I'm just angry about it because it could have been so much better. And then going to experience American was the final nail in the coffin, because now when I do those anywhere on the Eastern Seaboard, I'm going to fly American and not BA. And I love BA. I really do. Otherwise, I wouldn't keep flying on them.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I will talk more about BA in the next episode because we're running out of time because you have a hard stop. So we'll cover a few more things and then we'll do maybe actually, guys, there's a possibility we'll record a second episode in a row, which means tomorrow, which then will be out like maybe a week after this one. We're not sure yet because we're trying not to normally do too close together. Otherwise, they eat each other's. I've seen the stats, and the stats have exploded where we're not actually recording because random. You have people from Stavanger, of course, because every freaking flyer flies out of Stavanger.
Yeah, exactly. So there's someone sitting in an airport lounge waiting for their return flight so they can grab that great fare.
So maybe we'll record because Alex then lives for the US, is where you're going to stay there for a couple of months, right?
Yep.
So of course you will have your microphone, so we'll be able to record. I'm not flying a lot this summer, thank God, actually, because honestly, I love flying. I really do. And you guys, I'm like super passionate and positive about it. But I've been literally 6 days in London over the last 2 months, and I'd like to, just enjoy it. Plus, have you seen the weather, Alex, in London? For once, we actually have a true freaking
Mediterranean
summer.
weather. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. So many flights to still cover. Next episodes, probably, because there's so many others. I'm just going to give you a hint, which I hinted at actually just earlier. I also flew 747, but the Dash 8 with Lufthansa in first class in the nose with that noise of the gear going up and down. That was, again, apple to apple. So first class experiences. It was a very, 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 very good one. I'll talk about it in the next probably episode. It was fantastic. Before we go to the airport, a few reviews, because we've got, guys, that's one thing we need to apologize. We've gotten so many messages, whether on Twitter, whether, of course, on Facebook, email, et cetera, that probably we didn't see them all. And we won't be able to mention you all because usually we try to mention people that make the effort. So I'm going to mention a few here. And really, if we didn't see your message us again. And we're really sorry that we don't mention you because without you guys, I mean, for us, is we talk in front of a microphone. We didn't realize that so many people would actually love it.
No, we really, and every time we see a message or a review pop up on iTunes, we're genuinely touched.
Yeah, so let's do the iTunes ones. First one, they're all 5 stars. Thank you so much, guys. The first one's called, I love the title, My Breakfast Dessert is a Podcast. From Jonas from Lithuania. Greetings from Lithuania. I listen to the podcast while I'm commuting to work on my bicycle. So thank you we like being desserts. So it's very sweet from you, actually, Jonas. You probably are the same Jonas, I don't know, because maybe not, that wrote us on Facebook. And he said that given that you are pretty big foodies, I think that applies more to you, Alex, but I don't really like the term foodie. But
neither do I.
Yeah.
I just like food.
Exactly. And we both like food, exactly. He would definitely recommend the new route Qatar has been doing since February, Doha to Penang, Malaysia, on the Dreamliner. Apparently the food is out of this world. Penang is on my list to do. I was about to go to April. I couldn't make it, not especially with Qatar Airways, but I'm really looking forward to do that one. And of course, the food over there is amazing. I know that.
That's a lovely place.
Apparently, it's becoming a tech hub. This is also very interesting. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there's like co-working spaces, and maybe it's a new Bali. I don't know.
There you go. There you go. Well,
maybe. Right? Another 5 stars, Walks in the City from the UK. This one, smart, witty, and just great entertainment. And he says he's making his way, I'm assuming is a he, maybe he's a she, sorry, through the back catalog. Keeps every time we hear that, I'm like, how? He says, I don't get to fly as much as you guys, but you still sound like you get exactly as excited as I do every time I step on an aircraft. That's that enthusiasm come across in your show. And yeah, you know what? I think we both still are kids when we go every single time we go in an aircraft. I'm still 5 years old.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, me too. Me too. That doesn't go away. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Best travel podcast from Alt Johnson 1 in the US. This podcast, and that's very nice. This podcast has helped to relight my desire to travel again, starting with San Jose this week, then off to the Caribbean, London in the fall, etc., etc.
Wait, San Jose this week? Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah. Growing up, I lived right next to Midway Airport in Chicago. Seeing aircraft take off and land started my joy of aviation, and this podcast captures that joy in every episode. My 8-year-old son and I listen to it while driving around. It has helped start his interest with seeing the world. Well,
I need to watch my language then.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, first of all, we're not trying not to swear because some of the podcast listings, I don't want to have the explicit language kind of logo, whatever. So, and also Spotify, we're about to get listed, I hope, soon, and they will, so we'll promise you, Alt Johnson, I don't know what's your first name, we will clearly be very careful with using our language. I'm really sorry.
Yes. And hi to your son, if he's listening. That's so cool.
It's a great thing. I really appreciate that he loves aviation, and loving travel is very important. Best Aviation Podcast by Sergey from Munich in the US. I don't know if by Munich that means Munich, because that's how I read it when I see MUC, but probably not because in the US. I really feel like I am at the airport every time I press play. That's actually really cool. You learn something new in every episode. Even though I'm a pretty passionate AV geek, you deserve a lot more listeners. Keep up the amazing quality. Thank you so much, Sergey. That's very nice. I mean, thank you again, guys, taking the time to do that. You don't have to, but for us, it's that's the only kind of feedback we have is your messages. So we really enjoy that. Yeah. And last one, come on, the best aviation podcast out there. I mean, that's too much, man. From Pooty Lee from the US, that was very recently, a week ago. Cannot speak highly enough about this podcast. For anyone interested in the aviation industry, this is a must in capital letters. We complement each other very well, Alex. See,
that's kind. We have fun. Can you tell?
Yeah, we have fun. I mean, we can hear that. Actually, you know what? I was in Bangkok, and this. Literally, it was a massive conference. I don't know, it's 5,000-10,000 people, tech conference, the biggest, I think, in Thailand. And this person comes to me and shakes my hand and it's like, I'm a big fan of layovers.
Oh, that's so cool.
So I don't remember your name, man, because I have it in my notes somewhere, but I don't have them in front of me. Please rewrite me a message. But that was really, really, really so cool to come and to say hello, because I really, really like that.
That's so cool.
And another friend of mine, I was in Sofia this time. She's called Valentina. And it was the first time I met her. I said, oh, so good to meet you, la, la, la. And then she says, well, I was speaking to one of my best friends yesterday. It's called Slavo Tulecha, and I remember his name because your name, Slavo, appeared in some of the messages. And he tells me that it is you that is behind the Layover podcast. Wow. I'm like, what, guys? It's just a podcast.
That's so cool. That's so nice to hear. Wow.
Yeah, it is. Other messages next episode, guys, because there's other reviews on Facebook, etc., etc. But again, thank you so much. And really, again, our apologies if we don't mention you. It's probably because we've missed it. We've been in planes all the time, and all the Wi-Fi is better. Sometimes,
Yeah, exactly.
We'll talk about Wi-Fi in the next episode as well, because I'm really interested to see your experiences in the US if you had a good Wi-Fi, and maybe on your upcoming flight as well. So let's go to Mali.
Yes, I've never been.
Yeah, to the Maldives. I'd never been either.
Although my father was stationed there in the Air Force.
That's wow.
In the Maldives, yeah.
Like in the Maldives proper, or under the British bases that are like below it?
He was on GAN, GAN, which is part of the Maldivian atoll.
Because if you look at, guys on Google Maps, and you see the Maldives is pretty special for that. It's really an atoll. So really the highest point in the Maldives must be like 2.5 meters, right? Yeah. It's like literally right above the water. There's another atoll south of the Maldives. Again, Google Maps go pure south, and it's blanked out on Google Maps because it belongs to the UK. They lend it to the US for US force bases. And you cannot see what it is. And I'm like, this is such a shame. Not that I'm anti-army or whatever, but I mean, it's such a shame the UK could have like its own Maldives right there, and it's used to fight wars. I mean, I get it, but yeah, not. So the Maldives, it was my dream to do once in my lifetime. These, the postcard thing, the color of the sea, and I was not disappointed. The color of the beaches, I was not disappointed, and especially these water villas, like overseas, oh my god! So I went with my significant other. We went there; it was absolutely fantastic. Booked everything on my miles. It was the single most miles I've ever used for a trip because I booked everything with miles. So it was Emirates because it worked. Because interestingly enough, although it's a very popular destination as well from the UK, BA only flies seasonally. The last flight was literally a week before I wanted to go because I was really at the turn of the season. I was lucky the weather was good and everything, but I was really at the turn of the season. And BA doesn't fly from Gatwick. They do fly and they don't fly. Other airlines do the same. But Emirates and Qatar and others fly all the time there. I will tell the story about how I flew there in the next episode, again, for the sake of time, because Alex has an appointment to go to soon, but it was including first class on Emirates. So next time will be a lot of you guys will be hearing a lot of first class. Your Lufthansa, Emirates.
The premium episode.
But the airport, man, because that's the point of this segment. Because I'll talk about the Maldives again in other shows as well. But the airport, it's 30 years ago, it was a shed, literally a shed. A significant other told me she went there 25 years ago. I think 25 years ago. And it was literally like a shed. It was like a wooden thing on one of these islands, and they had built a runway, and that's it. That was literally it. Now it is an airport, but it is still like very small, right? It's not that small. It's concrete now. There's still a single runway. Interestingly, there's no taxiway. So
they do it like they do at Lucy.
Yeah, so you have these big, because I was flying a 777, right? So it's not small aircraft. So the interesting bit is that it's an island itself next to Mali. Mali is the capital, which is an island itself as well. Mali is the capital, and next to it they have an island, and the island is the runway, basically, is the airport. Because that's that go again on Google Maps. It's very telling and very impressive. You have an island which is made of sand, and you have a big runway on it, and that's it. That's it. So they were limited about how they could build an airport, obviously, because again it's an atoll. And so you land there, and you have to do the turn at the end, and then taxi back to the airport, which is in the middle of the runway. Wow. So that limits the number of flights that go there, obviously. Landings per hour if you want. And also there's almost no parking. So you see like these big fat 777s, Qatar and Aeroflot, and they're like parked next to each other. There's no bridge or whatever. So you have to go back downstairs, and they're like literally super, super close. And when they leave, it's like a whole, ballet of trying to get out and then going back to the runway and turning at the very end, which is also very, it's always so cool when they do that, especially with big aircraft. You see, how they can turn so fast. And so like in such a limited space, you're like, he's never going to make it. My car couldn't make that. And of course, it goes and turns
the ballet
around.
is a perfect way of describing the movements.
Absolutely. And the whole descent and obviously a takeoff as well is amazing because you're literally flying over the atoll. So, and you're seeing these pristine waters. The color of the water there it's really unique. I didn't really believe that before, because you've seen as well amazing beaches, places around the world, and I'm like, it is kind of special. I will admit that because of the configuration but you're flying over that and you land. It seems forever, and you see, because again the weather is bright, and you see these atolls, most of them uninhabited, by the way. There's still no one there, right? And it's so stunning. The airport is underseeing actually complete renovation. So they have Chinese money, everybody seems to have Chinese money these days, and they are building another runway slightly longer next to it. So right now they're reclaiming land. So basically they're putting sand over the sea to reclaim the land. Yeah. And the current runway will become the taxiway. So because they're seeing an increase in tourism, which is, completely insane. I think there was like 1 million 10 years ago, like 7 million. It's little small numbers compared, because of course it's an expensive destination.
And it's physically a small place.
Yes, it's large in terms of geography, because all these islands are scattered around. But it's true that it's like not a huge country in itself. But they're still seeing a lot of increase. So they're building this new runway. They will also build a new terminal. You can see a lot of construction around. But I mean, currently it's almost it's actually cool because you really feel you're going to a holiday. The airport is kind of. It's like in the open air, most of it. So you're walking and it's like 30 degrees Celsius, and you're working and you do security. And passport control is very not lenient, but like, you feel like in the holidays. It's very, very nice, actually. I
Nice.
enjoyed that. The interesting bit is what I did afterwards, because then I wanted to connect to the island. So basically, if you go to a hotel, resort, should I say, in the Maldives, usually they have all their own island, basically, right? So you have a set of islands that are close enough to Mali. Again, Velana Airport is the actual name of the airport, Mali Airport. So you can take boats to go there, like small boats in 20 minutes, and you are in your hotel. Of course, I chose something that wasn't very far. Why? Because I wanted to do the seaplane.
Of course.
So that's another terminal set. So you go out of the first one. They welcome you. You can already check in from there's two airlines, Trans Maldivian and the other one, and you can already check. Then they drive you to the sea terminal, and you see all those seaplanes, attached on the sea, and it's so amazing. And you're like, wow, this is so very cool. It was a cool resort, but most of the resorts have their own lounge there, so we're not talking even airport lounge. It's my own hotel resort lounge, overseeing these takeoffs from these DHC-3, so these are the seaplanes they're using. This is an experience you have to do once in your lifetime.
Man.
Actually, I just said there's one runway, the concrete one, but if you go on the official website of the airport, they tell you they have 7 runways, because obviously there's a lot of sea runways there. You don't see them because
they're virtual almost.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's literally the same. You enter the plane. So these planes are probably, I would say, 16 people plus 2 pilots and 1 staff. There's no service or whatever, guys, right? There's no such thing as that. My plane was maybe filled half filled, so 8 people, and they do multiple stops. The one thing I regretted, and I know that you always travel with them, I didn't have my earplugs. I was traveling super light. Come on, I was going on a beach. I was not doing anything. I forgot my earplugs. Man, these things are noisy when you're in the air.
Yeah. You didn't have like...
No headphones, nothing.
Wow.
I had taken only my AirPods, the Apple thing.
Yeah.
And because I was, I was traveling in business and first class in Emirates. I was like, the headphones will be good enough. I want to travel light. I don't have stuff. And also of course I should add, there was quite a strict limitation of what you can, how much weight you can bring into the seaplane.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so I was like, you know what? Plus, I don't want to bother with a lot of stuff. I'm going to be on the beach for a week. But, when it takes we had to wait, like in line, again, like in an airport. And the pilot looked like Tom Cruise. It was like a kind of Indian. I don't know. They look like Indian. And I'm sorry.
Sri Lankan,
yeah, Sri Lankan Indian, that kind of type. But Tom Cruise, it was the best pilot. I had pictures of him, like super cool. It was literally flying barefoot.
What a life that must be for a while to go and fly that type of stuff.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. So we wait in line literally, and of course I'm not a pilot, but it's amazing how they can basically they are waiting in line before the virtual runway on a virtual taxiway, and then one behind the other, and they are controlling the thing. And we're literally going as if we were, on wheels, but we're simply on these floating things, right? And then we take off. The takeoff is absolutely amazing. And of course, again, it's a small aircraft. You see everything. The pilot door stays open. So I was right in front, in equivalent of 1A, if you want, because I rushed into the plane there was no reserve seats or whatever, but I wanted to take pictures and see how they do it. It was freaking amazing.
That's
loved
so cool.
You feel everything, every small turbulences, but you see as well everything.
And how long was the flight?
35 minutes. There was on the way there, we had one stop, so another resort, because that's the thing. I couldn't even map it on
open flights.
Flights. Yeah, open flight. I couldn't use it because these are airports that are unmarked. They can land anywhere they want.
Oh, I see. So you couldn't log that. That's funny.
They could land anywhere they want. They landed this first resort after probably 20 minutes, and then to our resort were the only 2 ones going there. And it was, for me, that's the most impressive. It's the landing. The descent feels like, it's probably wrong, but feels like super stiff. I'm like, oh, let's crash into the water. And they're really going super, super stiff. And then the last possible second, just redress the thing and we'll land. And then, of course, there were small waves, so you can feel the whole thing moving. And it's like amazing.
I wonder why that is. Like why it feels like it's a steep descent.
I don't know if it's because of regulation for noise, because probably the resorts don't want to have like planes flying because it will fly kind of high. Because other than that, when I was on the island, I could never really hear the aircraft. They're very, very high above, right?
So maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I don't know. They're trying to, because their main resource in the country is literally tourism. So maybe, and hand tourism, guys. It is expensive. You have some resorts that are less expensive, but it is expensive. So probably that's why.
That makes sense. That's the most reasonable explanation.
But anyway, I think it was a DHC-3 Otter. So it's amazing experience. Do it once in your lifetime. The noise, the waves when you're trying, everything is just batshit, but it's cool.
That's so cool.
It's so cool.
So
anyway, the one thing I'll finish with that because I know you have a hard stop. What I learned that was very, very, again, each island, it's its own resort. The Maldives have, I think, +4 GMT time zone, which it in and of itself is not surprising where they're located. But then, depending on the hotel, so each island has its own time zone. So what happens is that some of the hotels that are catering for Chinese, for instance, or for Thai, or for Indians, will have their time zone closer to their actually most of the people they come from. So I learned that because my island was in a normal time zone, the Maldives time zone, whatever. But when I crossed to another island, which was next door, that island was +1. I was like, what? How is that? What? Because that island was catering for Indian, and Indians are next door and they're on +5 or something. So you're like, what? And I asked the staff of my hotel, I said, yeah, some islands are +5.5, some islands are, +2, like, and they're on Dubai time. I'm like, what the does that even mean?
That's so bizarre.
I would freak out. Not freak out, I'm exaggerating. But if I were on an island that is not on the official time zone, but then, I have to catch a flight back to the airport, my senses will be, okay, when do I need to leave? When do I need to leave not to miss my flight? What time zone are we in? You know what I mean?
That's so bizarre.
It is.
That would break my brain.
Look, that's it for Maldives. I'll talk a little bit more in the next episode as well. You're flying next, you told us.
To San Jose, California on BA on a 789. Looking forward to it.
I'm flying to Asia, probably in Cathay Pacific. We'll tell the story. We might record another episode, as we told you guys, before actually we do these flights or not. We'll see if we find the time to kind of compensate for our absence. Otherwise, we'll record next time when Alex is in the US and I'm here enjoying for once in my life barbecues in the UK.
There you go. That's the way to do it.
Safe travels, Alex.
Safe travels, guys.